Welcome to the second season of the Brussels Breakdown. We are here live from Antwerp, Belgium. After the summer stop, a brand new season, but also other new things, Dominic.
A lot of new things after a nice, well-deserved break in the summer of sunbathing and our summer school that we did in Lisbon. We're now back. Political season has opened in some good fashions. We're also back with a lot of new things, as Jonathan mentioned. We now have new interesting guests. More on that later. But we also have, and the fact you're now, instead of only listening to us, seeing us as well, as a new addition, we now have a professional film crew with us. So every episode will be filmed, will be uploaded online on YouTube and on all our social media platforms. So a lot of our content will be created. Yes,
Make sure to follow us on Instagram, but also Apple Podcasts, Spotify, to stay tuned and to get the latest updates about the Brussels Breakdown.
Brussels Breakdown!
On to the very first episode. We have here a guest of Turning Point Netherlands, about the organization, about Turning Point. Just give me a couple of seconds and we will dive into that. But I want to give you a little bit of reasoning why we invited Turning Point Netherlands here to our studio. And we have all unfortunately witnessed the death of Charlie Kirk a little over a month ago. And that has a lot of implications and results for the world, for the European Union, for the Netherlands. And therefore we have invited our guest Sandro from Turning Point Netherlands. And I'm not going to introduce him, so Sandro, the floor is yours. I would say introduce yourself to our listeners.
Of course, thank you, Jonathan. My name is Sandro Cassino, and I am a representative of Turning Point Netherlands, on what you said. And I really do that with all my love and energy because I want to bring back to the world, to Europe, to the Netherlands, that people get together again and they can have a conversation. This doesn't happen anymore, so I'm very happy to be a representative of the Turning Point, the Netherlands. And I'm as well a founder of a company called AI Speak. So
thank you. That's a good introduction. Before we go to Turning Point, I quickly want to elaborate on Charlie Kirk. What do you think the death of Charlie Kirk means for Europe, United States, basically the entire world?
It means losing your freedom. It really means losing your freedom. And I think people feel really attacked. They feel attacked because they realize that could be me, right? Charlie Kirk stands for freedom of speech. That was what he was doing there. And now you can have your opinions about his speech. And that's your right to have those opinions. But that he literally was assassinated is really horrible. On a university, where people go to learn, to have these debates, to have these discussions. He also did something that was very needed in America because a lot of people didn't want to have that conversation anymore, what I talked about before. Same thing here in the Netherlands. So what do I think his death brought to the world? As to say, well, so much. 120,000 students reached out to Turning Point USA after his death. That they wanted to set up a new chapter in their state. So that's 120,000, people. That's a crazy amount of people. And as well here in the Netherlands, well, you see, I've met several people that said, I came to Christ. We started only a couple of weeks. We already have over 100, if not more, people that are helping right now, that are volunteering for Turning Point in the Netherlands. And also a lot of people that say, yeah, this really wants me to step again in that light. There's a lot of people that right now that didn't want to talk about those topics, but they had strong opinions about it. But now those people are stepping again in the light and they're saying, yeah, we have to discuss this over the table.
You already introduced Turning Point a little bit. But what is Turning Point Netherlands? What are you guys doing? What is your goal? Tell us a little bit more about it.
Of course. Yeah, so in a short couple of sentences, Turning Point, the Netherlands, well, you can hear it in the name, a turning point. A turning point is needed. If we look at, for example, the Netherlands, we see that it's really going down the drain, the country. And I mean that in all seriousness. If you look at, for example, family values, those are less important every other day. If you look at freedom of speech, it's too often that our speech gets literally limited or it's snoerd, how you say it in Dutch, you know? We're not able to say something just because
Constraints, yeah.
yeah, constrained. That happens on both sides, right? That happens on left and right wings. That's also why we don't present ourselves as a specific left or mid or right wing organization. We do have conservative values, but not just conservative. It's also that part of freedom in, for example, in business related, right? Freedom of markets. That Turning Point USA have the same values. Well, we think that's also very important in the Netherlands, you know, freedom of markets, but as well as what I talked about before, those values, family values, and not having the government really censoring you, which happens too often every day. So yeah.
Thank you. That was a clear introduction, I think. Dominic, I already saw you with a burning question, so I would say
I always have
go ahead. I know.
If you look at turning points in general in the United States, so indeed for freedom of expression, freedom of speech, trying to fire up the debates within universities, I think that's something very good and noble to strive for. It's very needed nowadays, especially when we see polarization from all sides of the spectrum and also on the religious side. So it's very good that that it has that sort of absolute mission. But I'm curious. We have those recipes in the United States. United States and Europe are completely different and the same at the same time. So how would you say that's indeed more capitalistic view that is within the United States that also comes together with a Christian evangelical nationalist approach that we see in the United States? How does that translate, for instance, in the Netherlands or Europe in general?
That's a very good question. Well, the Netherlands and the USA, they share a lot of similarities, actually. They're very different, of course, but they also share a lot of similarities, mostly that within the youth, people don't just speak English fluently, but they consume so much American content. We see that a lot, and definitely with young people, they can already share those same values and morals that Americans have. So I do think that they're more similar than most people think. Of course, they are different. And I want to make clear that we are not a simple copy of Turning Point USA. We are not trying to copy the exact same thing that they did here in the Netherlands either. We're changing it because we do understand the Netherlands is different, but we still want to keep those same values. So how do we want to change it, for example? Well, when you look at Turning Point USA, right, freedom of markets was very important to them. Mm-hmm. But I think what they put a little bit less forward was those Judeo-Christian values that really shaped the Netherlands and shaped Europe. So what we do the same is, as Turning Point USA, we invite everyone to come to us. It doesn't matter if you're Christian, it doesn't matter if you're Muslim, it doesn't matter if you're atheist. We invite those people that want to bring that Dutch culture back, think that those values are very important. We don't force it down your throat, but we do keep those similarities, as in, for example, what you talked about, really creating those debates again. Because truth to be told, people are literally waiting to debate. I can 100% sure say that. Like, I see it around myself. People have so strong opinions, and what happens if people are not able to express their opinion or talk about it with other people? Then they're literally going to explode. If we look at history, I want to give, for example, Greg Lukianoff. Maybe you know him. He was a speaker at a TED Talk. In a short couple of sentences, he said, when people stop talking, when freedom of speech is censored, that is a problem. Mm-hmm. That is problematic. That's actually when violence happens. Mm-hmm. So that is really why we are here, because we see that violence could possibly happen even more if our freedom of speech is limited, like you saw what happened to Charlie Kirk. So that is a very important thing that we're also trying to bring to the Netherlands.
So do you think free speech is under fire here in the Netherlands?
100%.
In the European Union? Yes.
It's very much under fire, so that you see it every day. You see it every day, but it's kind of, I think when we talk about freedom of speech being limited, we have to also look at what the law says, but also what happens just in our society. If you look at, for example, if you're, for example, I'm in a university, I study at the Haagse Hogeschool, it's a university in The Hague, and if you really show up with conservative values there, you can really, your mouth can be shut, you know, just for the fact that they think it's hateful.
Very true. Yeah.
So yes, I do see free speech being limited, and I think it's very problematic. And I think we could take USA as an example, because even if we look at the law as well, I think that it's too strict compared to the USA, where there's less limitations on your free speech.
What limitations are you thinking about then?
Well, for example, you have the law in the about discrimination, right?
Yeah.
And I think those laws can easily be sort of taken apart, and they're not really used within context, right? So when, for example, you look at the USA, when you look at US, they have less law. They have no, let's say they have stronger laws on that freedom of speech, which they were founded on. And I think in the Netherlands you don't have that. So
Would you then describe yourself and maybe even Turning Point, the Netherlands, as being free speech absolutists, or would you say the current rules in the Netherlands are enough when it comes to the constraints? So, for instance, I don't know for sure how it is in the Netherlands, but I'm from Belgium, so we have two instances that is being questioned when it comes to freedom of speech, which is one, you can't do hate speech, and that's a big debate surrounding that, because hating it on itself is not illegal. So making sure or trying to influence people to hate, so to do something legal, how can it be legal in itself? Obviously, that is being used as a precaution, because the next, the second, and probably the most extreme one is to call upon violence. And I think that hate speech can translate into the violence. But I don't know whether you say, okay, but maybe those two exceptions on the freedom of speech should not be there. We should have free speech entirely, and we can determine it on ourselves.
well, what I would say is we are not free speech absolutists. What I'm just saying is that if you look at how the US does it, that should be an example for us. And that is because they have stronger laws on freedom of expression, freedom of speech. Now, I'm not either an expert on every law that they have in America, but what we know is that the European Union, for example, influences the Netherlands a lot. Talking about freedom of speech digitally, for example, right? They're now trying to pass a law where they can say what's misinformation or not on social media platforms. So I'm not so much saying that we're free speech absolutists. I'm just saying we should take the example of the USA and apply that to the Netherlands as well. That's just what I'm saying. No.
Talking about free speech, talking about Charlie Kirk, about turning points. I'm wondering, do you think this is our turning point?
This is our turning point. Yeah. Look at what's happening in the world. Look at the wars. Look at the crazy things that are happening right now. Look at the suicide rates, depression. It's never been higher. Look at the crazy ideologies people have, like chopping off their body parts or whatever. We are really at a critical point that we have to turn. And there's a lot of people that are gonna think, well, we're also doing well, we're also getting better, but this is more problematic. The fact that we are right now in this time and period, as well as not just those wars and the things that are happening to people, but also the polarization. The polarization is a huge thing, and I'm not just using this word as all the politicians, they use it, polarization, but it is a real thing. And on the end, turning point is also for connecting people. So it's a turning point, but we'll do it together. We don't want to turn away from other people, right? We want to bring people to us and then turn to the right.
You already elaborated a little bit on my thoughts, because I was wondering, what is the role of turning point in that turning point, if you know what I mean?
Yeah, of course. Well, bringing people together. What I already said, it's bringing people together. I think that's missing as well in the Netherlands. If you look at the political parties, there's so many, right? And there's almost too much to count.
The ballot is like this,
right?
It's crazy.
And that is kind of a Dutch thing, where you either everyone wants to have their own party. Turning Point says no, let's bring each other together and let's have those same shared values. And we think that we can even bring people together who do not have the same values yet, and do that through conversation, through debate. So,
but you say there are some values that Turning Point the Netherlands has. So there is some sort of an ideology, but let's say a vague one, like you can opt into those principles. Would you say that's more important, that people are being influence in a certain way of thinking, which also comes with a certain openness? Or do you feel that Turning Point is something that really needs to spark debates, that it is focusing on, so that's basically the question, are you focusing on implementing more of certain values, or are you going to focus more on the debate, the fact that everyone actually listens to each other, so beyond polarization, as it were?
We are focusing on debates, 100%. That's more important. We have, of course, what we stand for. I don't think it's that fake. I think it's, clear, actually, like what I mentioned before: freedom of speech, less censorship, limitation from the government, Judeo-Christian values, family. The family is an important thing, which is also almost gone in the Netherlands, literally. But it's not about that. It's more about conversation and doing that through debate. So, yeah.
So we are now at a turning point, as you say.
Yeah.
You now have a role, as Jonathan asked, and you clearly corresponded on that role, and that you envisioned what you want to achieve, what you want to change. If this is the turning point, what's the end point for you when it comes to, let's widen scope a little bit to
Like
maybe
where
Europe?
you go in the next years to come.
Yes, well, maybe elaborate a little bit on where do you see Turning Point in the Netherlands evolving towards in 5 or 10 years.
Yeah.
And every organization in Belgium, if they have subsidies, we call it, they need to have a goal.
Yeah.
And the goals for every organization is to at some point stop existing, because the problem that they voiced is now being solved.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
what would that point
But,
be?
True, but on the other hand, as long as there are humans, I think this issue will always exist.
Yeah, but we're talking now about some sort of a utopia, right? So maybe elaborate on what are the plans for next year, 5 years, and maybe if you would have a magic wand, how would a perfect world for you look like?
That is a very interesting question. Definitely a sort of utopia, right? What is the end point regarding Turning Point? We definitely take the US chapter as an example of how many people they got to those universities and got them listening, who came to watch the debates. That was huge. I'm talking about hundreds of thousands of people, right? So what is our goal in the next 5 years? To literally be one of the biggest organizations in the Netherlands, if not the biggest, maybe even called a movement. Because if we go to those colleges and universities, and I believe that we will get people there that want to listen, that want to watch those debates, even want to join them, and this is going to be a huge movement that hopefully gets also even hundreds of thousands of people in the Netherlands. That would be hopefully the goal that we could reach. The end point, I mean, that is definitely a good but also difficult question. On the end, I think that we want to bring people to those Judeo-Christian values that I talked about before. I think that is important. And to really bring people back together, less polarization. If that would be a beautiful endpoint. So
I'm curious, what do you view as the main threat to free speech currently? Is that a threat to maybe our Judeo-Christian values, or what do you view as, or maybe there are more, but
Yeah.
what do you view as a main threat or threats?
The biggest threat I see right now is leftist ideologies, radical leftist ideologies that go around and censor people who have a different ideology. And that doesn't need to, that can be a centered ideology, can be more right-wing ideology, but that's what I see as the biggest problem, and evidence also shows, right? We talked about before about what the European Union is trying to push with this social media censorship, where X said, right, from Elon Musk said, I'm not going to do that. We're gonna let everyone. No chat control. So that is a very big issue, and I think that stems from a lot of leftist radical ideologies.
Only leftist ideologies, or do you also think right-wing ideology?
I see that as the biggest problem right now, but on both sides, of course, people can try to limit other speech, and I think that it's the most important right now to also look at ourselves and be Be critical. And that's also what Turning Point Netherlands stands for. Be critical to yourself as well. So if someone is watching this podcast and they're listening to it, I want to make sure that they understand we are critical to ourselves as well. That happens through debate. That's when we can come with evidence and we can understand each other more, and we can also help each other change our opinions. Because on the end, what Charlie Kirk said for Turning Point USA was, prove me wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Prove me wrong. If you have better evidence, I'll change my opinion. I haven't seen better evidence for a lot of points that I have strong opinions on. And I think that's important that we start speaking that again. Also because now with social media, you can get so much information, literally from everywhere really. With AI, I study AI and data science. AI is a big danger to our society.
Sure.
I see positive things of it as well. I mean, I study it literally, right? So I see that we can use it to our advantage as well. But the dangerous influence it has is that I'm 100% sure, I would say in maybe maximum 5 years, you cannot see the difference anymore. Maybe even less, 3-4 years, you cannot see the difference anymore between a real video and an AI generated video. That should worry you, because where are you gonna get your information from? You have to do a lot of research, so.
Now, last follow-up question. I don't know if you have any burning questions, but I was wondering where, according to you, is the line between pointing things out in society and the other part in hurting people? Where do you think is there a line?
Love that. I love that question.
And what your stance is on that one.
That's a very good question, and that's probably also what the listeners and people watching will also think, because that's also why a lot of people see me as a hater, for example, or they see people with my opinions more conservative as someone that's hurting people. I draw the line with physical violence and speech. Now, I do agree that this has some nuance to it, because if you are literally directly saying, let's attack them right now, that's different. But if it's, if it's not a direct plan to physically attack someone, I see speech not as violent. And history proves that. I talked about before about that Greg Lukianoff. I ask people to please research Greg Lukianoff TED Talk. He talks about 4 points. And really what those points are about, the first point is that speech protects the vulnerable people. Why? Because vulnerable people, they usually often don't, for example, vulnerable people who don't have a lot of power, don't have a lot of money, so all they have is their speech. And look at, for example, slavery, abolitionists. Those people stood up for slaves. And though their speech was also seen as hate speech in that time. So we have to understand that what you consider as hate right now you should not be able to censor my speech just because you consider it as hate speech. Isn't that subjective? No, it's not subjective, because it's where I draw the line. Even speech that I don't agree with, they should also be able to speak their mind. They should also be able to, and I don't consider that as hurting someone or violence. And also, she's called Natalie. I forgot her last name. She did research on Natalie Kozov, I think it is. She did research on whether people are actually hurt by people who come forward with these strong opinions and do that through free speech. Almost all of the research showed no, people do not get hurt from it. So that's interesting, right? Because you hear a lot of leftist people that you speak to, they'll say, I think that's bad, because it's hurtful, it's hateful, and it's hurting people. It's not. It doesn't. The research shows that people actually get better. Most of them get better off those opinions, and that is because they get either excited about it to find another opinion, or they already know that people have those opinions.
Charlie Kirk got assassinated.
Charlie Kirk got assassinated, but I was now talking about the consequence of people who use their free speech and whether that hurts other people. Do I think it's possible that you can be hurt if you're going to come out with these opinions, that I can be shot, as to say? Yes, I see that as a possibility, and people might be shocked about that. I do see that as a possibility because I'm realistic and I understand that saying things that people are so against, that can create something in a society. But I am speaking about this because this needs to be changed, because otherwise it can be you next time that's going to be literally assassinated. And I find that hard to say, but that's why I want to speak more about this as well. Also say that we should never kill each other, even if you disagree so much with the opinion. So,
Would it be worth dying for free speech for you?
would it be worth dying for free speech?
Yes.
Yes, it would be worth dying. Oh, let's elaborate a bit more on that. It would be worth, for me, is worth dying for my belief. I'm a Christian, so this is, besides Turning Point in the Netherlands, this is just my personal belief. I'm a Christian, so would I die for my belief? 100%. And I see that those as intertwined, because I do this because that's what I feel my belief asks from me. So yes, you could say I would die for my free speech. Yeah.
Beautiful, but that's also something that a lot of people, maybe our listeners, but maybe also people who might not listen to other opinions, would find very extreme as an opinion, that you would literally die for what you do believe in. Do you feel that people need to, besides being more open to indeed debates, but would need more, I would not say an ideology per se, but meaning in their life? Because you have a very strong sense of meaning. I'm Christian, I believe in freedom of speech, I'm willing to defend it, I'm willing to put myself out there, which is not easy to do. You will get some hate, at least. I hope
Yes.
you don't get it.
Let's hope so.
But probably if you don't get any hate in your life, you haven't stood for anything.
Yes.
I do believe that indeed two less people nowadays stand for something, and I do find it very interesting and inspiring, actually, that you are standing so strongly for this. What would your message be for other people, indeed, to also find their purpose and also find that same conviction that you have?
So just to make it understandable, are you saying here that if you don't get any hate for what you stand for, you don't actually stand for anything? Or
Yes, absolutely.
no,
Absolutely, yes.
correctly.
So how can people find more meaning in their lives? What would you're a young guy, you're a bright guy, you have a lot of ambition and potential. What would your case be, your wisdom be for people from your generation as well?
Search for the truth, and you'll find Jesus Christ.
Amen.
I believe that with all my heart. I said search for the truth as well, because in the Bible it says Jesus Christ is the truth. He's the way and he's the life. That has set me free from drugs, from an evil life, from not being the person that I really I want to be, being all down there in that hole. I have a bad past if I look back at myself. And it switched like that once I followed God. So yes, that is for me, for everyone, I would say, for my own personal conviction, that you should follow and you should strive for in life.
That's beautiful things. And Dominic, what would your advice be? Do you have anything to add?
Dig deep, pray. For us, it's indeed Christ, but for even to another God or another idea, but think a lot. Think about who you are as a person, what your meaning is on this world. We only have 80, 90 years. Find your purpose, find what reason you're put in this world, and if you dig deep enough, you will find that purpose, and if you live by it, you will shine your lights on the world. And if you can shine your light on the world, you can inspire people, you can make the world a better place, even if it's a very small part. But if every one of us comes together and makes the world a better place with all those small parts, like it is a puzzle, at the end of the day, if enough people do it, we do get a better world. So I find it truly inspiring what you're trying to achieve. I hope you will be able to do so. We have our mission, we have our podcast also to bring back the openness, debate, to hear other opinions.
Love that.
Some of them do not get that many listeners. Maybe people haven't thought things through to the core, but knowledge. I would say even I would say to add to that, I would say knowledge.
Then I
Means adding knowledge, you mean?
Yes, read, talk to people, educate yourself, because by educating yourself, you'll be able to be as eloquent as our guest today,
Yeah.
Sandro. You will be able to really debate the topics, not coming just from an ideology of or a place where someone just said something or you just listen to the mainstream media. No, really do your research. I'm not talking about conspiracy theories and all that, but do your research. Make sure that if you talk to someone, that you not only come from a place that you research yourself and what you are, but also about those topics, about the world. And I think if people not only engage with each other, but engage better with better knowledge, we do indeed create a better world.
Yeah, I agree.
Definitely. I love that as well. And I think that you said that also very eloquently. So well done, Dominic.
Thank you very much.
And well, that's also something that inspired me about ECP Youth, right?
For me, you talked about yourself, and I thought that was very beautiful to open up. I think I can speak for both of us. When both of us joined ECP Youth, a political Christian youth organization, a lot of people maybe doubted us. They thought by themselves, why would you go for such a niche project? Because there are a lot of bigger parties, but I feel indeed those Christian values and what we try to change in Europe is worth it. And I think both of us grew in that sense as well, that all of us are working together with one main thing that we all have in common, which are the
Unite
teachings
us.
of the Bible.
Well, actually, to add to that point, you said faith in God. You said knowledge. Then I will add get involved. I think
Okay.
that perfectly sums it up. So faith, knowledge, but also get involved. If you want to do something, or if you're not happy about politics, for example, go do something. My parents were always saying, like, you cannot complain about certain things in society if you don't do it or don't change it or don't start changing it yourself.
Wow.
So to that third point,
That's a
get
good point.
involved. Get involved, definitely.
I have an additional question to that.
My parents are very wise, I know.
That's very true. I've met them. They're amazing.
Yeah, because your father is a pastor, right?
Yeah, my dad is a reverend. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for, what was it, 30 years? 35?
So how was that like on a Sunday? You said you're gonna come with me, or was it more like voluntary to go to the church?
So was there a choice?
It wasn't really a choice, but you would just go and it was fine, and later on you start choosing for yourself to go. But talking about faith, my dad would always take us apart a Sunday afternoon and teach us some things from the Bible, and we would have to learn certain Bible verses out of our heads, so that we could always repeat them later. So
Okay,
yeah,
that's
something
good.
to thankfully look back on, definitely.
I have an additional question. So, besides getting involved, which for you also means going to church, do you have some other tips where people could get involved? Also, obviously, now in the Netherlands, people have the option of going to Turning Point, the Netherlands, and they can obviously join ECP as well. But
Go to our website.
exactly, but to lower the barrier a little bit, if people want to get involved, and for instance, they're not that fortunate that they live in the Netherlands, how would you say get your first steps in there to change the world?
If you are interested in, well, let's take politics, for example. If you're interested in politics, do your research. I would say that's the very first basis. Know where you stand, so know what your values are. If you have Christian values, do something with it. So when you know what values you are, you can choose, if you want to go into politics, choose whatever party fits your best and go to the youth movement. There are always vacancies. They always need people.
But Jonathan, what would you say to the people that are watching and they think, yeah, but I don't believe in politics anymore. I think it's just one big theater show.
That's a very good question. That is also, to be honest, what I thought myself when I was going into politics. My thing was, yes, but if everyone goes into politics, everyone who goes in politics turns out not the way they said, or they said, oh, we're going to change, and they didn't change. If you want to bring your values into politics, if you believe that you can do it better, you should then do it yourself or get involved and push that idea. Because I understand that politics can be, a shit show sometimes. In the Netherlands, to be honest, it is sometimes. But what I think, if no one changes it, then maybe I should go and maybe I should make that change happen. So really think about what you can do.
That's a really good point, right? That's also what our democracy was built on.
Definitely, and it's something what
yeah.
Ronald Reagan said when he was president. I don't know exactly what quote it was. Don't ask what your government or what your country can do for you, but
What you can do for your
what
country.
you can do for your country.
Wow.
That is how I view it.
Yeah.
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 Now, we touched the subject a little bit, and it's almost time to wrap up. We're shooting this at the end of October, which means in the Netherlands, where you both of you live, you will have elections in a week.
Next Wednesday.
When this episode comes online, it will be after the elections. Sandro, if I can ask for you to give me one thing that you would like to have changed after the elections and the forming of a government in the Netherlands, what would your wish be?
Well, my most important issue right now is immigration in the Netherlands. It's my most important issue because people need to get better care. They need to get better living situations. People are still in their 30s and they're still living with their parents at home because there is a huge housing problem in the Netherlands. So I want to make clear that I'm not against people with other cultures from other countries coming to the Netherlands, but I do see this as a current problem. We are getting too much people over the border, and I hope that out of the elections, that's gonna come in this favor. That hopefully they're gonna be more strict about the borders. So yeah, that.
Couldn't be more clear. Dominic, I think unfortunately it's time to wrap up.
Exactly. First episode, second season, already done.
I know.
Sandro, I want to thank you for giving us your time and your insights.
Thank you.
I want to
Dominic and
thank
Jonathan.
all of the listeners as well for tuning in for our first episode, for our second season. Now with the film crew, because we got so much support from you guys that we want to evolve and do better.
Yeah. And next episode, shall we?
We can spoil it this time.
It will be about chat control, so also a little bit related to free speech. So if you want to listen, make sure to follow us on Instagram, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. Dominic, can you end this in a beautiful way?
Besides subscribing to us, looking at our website for our events, because a lot of interesting events are going to happen.
And
have a look at Turning Point, the Netherlands, at what Sandro and his crew are doing. And I would say, God bless all of you. Welcome to the second season.